Thank you all so much for turning into our live webinar and fireside chat on how leading organizations are driving real results with AI and collaborative work management. Let's get started. So it's great to be here. My name is Mark, and I help lead the Work Innovation Lab here at Asana. The Work Innovation Lab is our in-house research and thought leadership platform dedicated to the science of how work happens and how organizations can work even smarter to unlock their full potential. We have a lot of exciting topics in store for you today. We're going to be discussing the converging role of collaborative work management in AI, how AI is shaping the way that people work, what high-performing organizations are doing differently, and how to measure and scale your strategy for AI and collaborative work management. So I'll pass it to our very special guest speaker, Margot, Vice President and Principal Analyst from Forrester, to introduce herself. Welcome, Margot.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate that. My name is Margot Visitation. I am Vice President and Principal Analyst with Forrester Research. I've been an analyst for a very long time, over 20 years, and my area of coverage is project management, portfolio management, collaborative work management, agile enterprises, really everything that helps organizations with practices, principles of delivering successful outcomes and measuring their value back to an organization. So let's get started.
Great to have you here, Margot. Let's dive in. So to start, could you please tell us a little bit about collaborative work management?
Sure. Collaborative work management is coming together of how people work together and what the importance of having effective communication help manage the way that they plan and execute activities uh, to in order to serve clients, deliver successful projects, or just deliver successful outcomes. AI, AI, is really just going to exacerbate that or accelerate adoption and need and desire for that. So let's take a look about what collaborative work management is and how AI can help support that. So let's start with a picture. It's always the best way to get started. Does this look familiar? This is a great example of why you need collaboration. You're going through a large project or company is building a bridge over a river, and we've had enough bridge crashes in the news that this is kind of relevant. So, but you get partway through and using traditional tools and practices, and all of a sudden you're meeting in the middle and going, oh, WTF, you guys are building a tunnel, and then the folks that you're collaborating with are working with to deliver this bridge. What the TF? You guys are building a bridge. I always want to say that out loud. Sure. So this is a perfect example of what poor collaboration looks like. People are working on different things and with a common purpose, but that common purpose isn't well understood. Next slide. And why is that? Because work is increasingly collaborative, and what makes it increasingly collaborative is, we'll talk about that in just a second. But before we get into that, what you really have to realize is every business consists of transactional and collaborative process work. Okay, what I'm calling transactional work today is more planned work. You're delivering a product to a customer, a project for a partner. It is what is planned, and there are transactions involved with that plan to achieve a milestone or an outcome. And then you have collaborative process work where you are, in a sense, as a contributor, doing your day job, but that day job may have activities that relate to a project itself. 50% of information workers collaborate with at least 6 people a day, and I think that number continues to go up a bit. And while I don't have the data point noted here, we have seen that it's on average 13 applications that an employee needs to go through each day in order to be able to do their job. So when you're looking at this type of work, when you think about it, instead of looking at it as in my own world of activities, you're looking at, order to cash. Client places an order, receives the product, company gets paid. Okay. That's a whole process of different steps, different activities where people in accounts set up, vendor, product, they all need to be aware, informed, and working with the originator of the request in order to be able to deliver the outcome. So that takes you through the entire process of an organization. Order to cash then results in other work streams like source to pay, hire to compensate. Maybe you need to bring in new talent, building the product, delivering it, then delivering it, and then managing the account as you go forward. So as you can see, that 6 people a day can easily multiply. Next slide. Let's look at the numbers, and for another reason why collaborative work management, and the need for collaboration is becoming so critically important. This is from our priorities survey. We ask business and tech leaders every year what is important to them. And 60% of the respondents in our what are your top business priorities was about improving end user experience. Companies are recognizing it's not just about managing the budget. If we want to achieve our growth targets, which is the second most important priority, we really have to make sure we've locked in our end users, that their experience from the time they think about a product to the time they actually purchase and use a product, how do we improve that entire experience, okay? If you do that, then growth targets should follow. 53% say improving brand or improving innovation are a top priority. And how do you do that? You enable people to work together more effectively, because managing talent is one of the top challenges today. Even though we see some uncertainty in the job market, there's still a deficit of really critical skills. So organizations, once you hire the right people, you want to keep them. So 50% of your of priorities for business leaders is let's improve the employee experience so that we're giving people the right tools, the right environment, the right level of transparency, the right level of trust in order to be able to be satisfied in how they're working in their organization. And by bringing all of these together, you just look at the numbers and it shows us that companies need to have the right environment in place to grow and define themselves as successful, and collaborative work management is a real contributor to that. Let's look at it from an IT perspective, okay? Now, we talked about getting business users on board. From an IT perspective, you're still supporting that. What's important to them? 13% site improving IT's capability to improve end user experience is their top priority, and that aligns with business users. Good thing. 9% improve IT's capability to improve employee experience. Another good thing. Again, it is bringing people together. It's that human element that's really important. 8% improve IT resilience. We've heard about some of the key blackouts that prevented folks from getting to their needed necessary business applications over the last few weeks from several different companies. 8% say it's really important that we make sure that happens as little as possible. And 7% say we want to continuously be able to reprioritize alignment, so that way we know that we are working with business on their objectives to do the right thing at the right time. Now, these percentages look lower than what we saw on the business side of the house. Just to recognize, I pulled out these measures, but we ask across a much broader set of questions such as security, risk, architecture, quality, the performance. So we ask across a broader user set, and that's why the percentages are a little bit lower, but the priorities still are in alignment. And what all of this is telling us is that it is time for project and task management. It's now going mainstream. Companies are realizing that there's value in these building these connections. Adoption of these tools have grown. What was interesting is when the pandemic hit, that's when companies were scrambling on any way to connect their people together in a way that was effective or as effective as it could be. So we started to see adoption creeping up. Back in the early 2010s, late 2017, 2020, project management adoption was very small. It was really targeted at power users of project managers, portfolio managers. They were the ones that used it. Everybody else was sort of left to their own devices. By 2023, we saw that adoption grow by more than half, going from about 3% to over 7% in 2023. Well, now in 2025, it's doubled again for 15% adoption. So organizations are seeing that it's not about just building a large complex project. Any work we do better when we plan, we manage it, we execute it, and we get the feedback. Significant growth is also expected in this area. 72% of survey respondents that we interviewed during our software survey said that they were going to increase spend on project, task, collaborative work management over the next year. So what that means is the value is being demonstrated and organizations are clamoring for it. So, a 72% plan to increase is very significant growth over the 20%, 30% that we've seen in years past. Business-driven adoption is also supporting that. That's another thing that we saw back in the 2010s, 20-teens, was looking at business adoption. It was higher on the IT side of the house or in very specific, very project-oriented areas. But we're now seeing broader adoption growing, and it has grown over 16% over previous years. So organizations, again, are seeing that the nature of work, the transparency of work is flattening out. And now that that type of adoption is really beginning to grow, AI is the next level to turbocharge this. We're now seeing that over a third, 34% of organizations responding expected to increase the adoption of Gen AI specifically within project task management and collaborative work management, meaning that they want to see how, or want to employ how AI can work for them to drive that greater productivity and delivering those stronger outcomes. Because collaborative work management, the usage of these tools in small viral teams, recognize that you do collaborative work throughout an entire organization. Nobody works in a vacuum. You've got to talk to somebody, you've got to get feedback from somebody, you need somebody to make a decision. And where project management tools covered the project-oriented work, you're delivering a conference, that's event planning. You're a large food services company and you're supporting sporting events. That's all event planning, right? Those are projects. You need to collaborate on content collaboration, because you are managing the marketing aspect of bringing a new product, event, or service to a market. You have to be talking to a large number of people to be able to do that. Other types of work, whether it's IT and managing maintenance project policies, building a new product, professional services, building out a statement of work, all of these are formed, they follow process. But in order to deliver them successfully, you've got to work with the process-oriented folks that need to contribute to your project in order to get to a successful outcome. So there you're seeing things like vendor collaboration, RFP management. Project managers aren't doing that. There are specialists that do that, and you need to collaborate with them. Same thing with HR and in talent development, hiring, building policies for hiring new talent. All of that is ongoing work, but you're often doing it in conjunction with a formal project. Same for business and corporate development. So all of these show that collaborative work management really is necessary to bring the right people together at the right time. Next slide, please. Project, so we have process work that we talked about, we have project work that we talked about, but what is the thing that is bringing them together? And that concept is time. Okay, time really drives this because work needs to be done by a certain point, or it has a certain level of urgency that needs to be addressed right away. Time is a critical element. So, and it can work, unlike project management tools, which were only process oriented. Collaborative work management allows you to work in similar ways, whether it's more structured or less structured, whether it's many people or few people, you still need to bring that collaborative effort together. That's the connective tissue that makes planning work and doing work synthesize, that allows you to align strategy with execution because you see the connective threads throughout. So whether it's many people in terms of projects, or it's fewer people in terms of resolving service cases, you've got the ability to, no matter their level of contribution, they can collaborate together. And from a less structured point of view, and I know marketing people who are watching this are going to say, wait a minute, marketing campaigns are very structured. They're also highly iterative. And so you may not build in as much formal process as you would on a capital project, but you still need that collaboration and iteration. And also to where it's fewer people, service delivery, you still need to have people connected, able to communicate, and enable and support collaborative decision making in order to achieve that successful outcome. Let's move on. So what does this mean from a technology perspective? We want to put a lens on this. And as I mentioned earlier, that the average information worker, and that's anybody that touches a device. So in a sense, we're almost all information workers. But anything, any application that a information worker touches that impacts their way of work is going to impact the way that the broader organization works. And when I first started writing about this, and I've been writing about it for quite some time, we talked about all the different tools that are in the marketplace for an operation. Company knows everything about their customer through their CRM practices, right? And their CRM tooling. They know everything about their customer. From a financial perspective, they know everything about every dollar, euro, pound, what have you, going in and going out of the company. But what they are not having great insight in is, how are we getting there? Are we working too hard for the value, or are we not focusing on the right types of value for the organization? What we see organizations doing was they were trying to do it with a whole bunch of different tools. Email is still the most popular way of communicating for organizations, believe it or not, still is. But what we're seeing more every day is organizations are like, how can I bring this together? So when we first started writing about it, you had that planning tier, that was its own set of tools that may or may not have, and more likely not have, talked to the execution tiers, such as project management, professional services automation, collaborative work management or task management, and then on the application service delivery, tickets to fix an application or what have you on the tech side, application delivery and value stream management as you are building out your tech stack to better support your customers. And finally, the enterprise data level that is supposed to ensure and support data-driven decision making. Old days, you could put your hand over the left side of the slide, and that would be the tool set they're using, and people are jumping in and out of it. and you lose the thread. You get interrupted and you don't have that information. What collaborative work is, has sought to do, and what we're starting to see increasingly, is that organizations are using integration more successfully because of API at the center of a tool's solution architecture, integration layers becoming much more plug and play and usable. That enables you to bring organizations together so context switching reduces, and you can retain the context of a demand, a request, a question, or a decision that helps you make better decisions. And AI is just going to turbocharge this.
Thanks, Margot. And that's exactly where Asana comes in as the platform for human and AI coordination, where everyone, both humans and AI, are aware of the work they need to do and how their work connects to company goals. Humans and AI are better able to work together to maximize impact in a centralized platform that helps organizations adapt and drive results at any scale. And Asana is the only work management platform built on a data model that can get work data in order so that you can effectively leverage AI. Now, what is that data model? It's the work graph data model, and it's visualized here. It enables AI to work in the right context, right? With a precise understanding of the relationships between the people, the work, the processes, and the outcomes. And that really helps underscore how important the right data is to unlock the value of AI. So let's shift gears a bit and look ahead at how AI is shaping the future of work itself. So from emerging team structures to dynamic ways of working, we're seeing some really, really powerful trends. Margot, from your perspective, how is Gen AI as well as agentic AI, how are they impacting the way people work in collaborative work management platforms? What would you say are the kind of critical or most important use cases that you've seen or are hearing about from clients? What are they asking about in that regard?
Sure, sure. AI and collaborative work management is, I think it's one of the key and perfect areas for organizations to build up their AI capabilities and really begin to turbo drive the way that they work, but allowing you to retain the necessary guardrails and controls that are in place that guide and provide better feedback to make right decisions. So what I mean by that is, AI and collaboration. So um, we'll talk about generative AI and collaborative AI and agentic AI and how they work together. I almost was trying to mash them into one word. But number one, when you look at it, it enhances collaboration in that AI breaks down language barriers, it improves clarity. You can look at improving the tone of the way that you're collaborating to get better feedback. How many people say that you can't get appropriate context and tone if you are IMing or texting someone? It tends to be very abrupt. AI can support that and help you work more effectively to get more informational feedback, whether it's positive or negative. So it helps in that area. And you can work with people all over the world through things like real-time translation. That helps improve productivity, but this is where, Enhance is very much generative, where agentic comes into the mix is increasing productivity. Streamlining repetitive tasks and processes. If you know that at the end of every set of activities that you deliver, you've got to be able to, deliver a certain set of notifications, or you need a certain set of decisions. Agentic AI can automate that and make that a lot more, efficient for you going forward. It can improve task assignments through identifying who should be doing this work. It can update and automate tasks and questions regarding tasks to be able to provide better status updating, progress tracking, and we're even starting to see some more smart scheduling around identifying when is somebody ready, when is the best time to execute a task, instead of leaving it to somebody to try to figure that out on their own. They still have to validate it. Humans are incredibly important, but AI can make these suggestions. We're also seeing it in that people have to work smarter. We're always being asked to do more with less. So how do you do that? You improve knowledge so that you know where you can streamline a process and not do something because it's the way you've always done it. So extended search, recommendations, context awareness, all helps in information workers to improve their knowledge around a particular process, project, or activity, and be able to, work with a greater level of confidence, which then can potentially bring you greater quality and improved risk management. Ideation, how do we take advantage of an opportunity in the marketplace faster? Ideation is another area where you can just free form. You don't have to go right into a project plan. You can free form and build out brainstorming, activities, and then share that with your extended network of people that you work with to get help and get insight into that. Creative prompts help you build better reporting, and to maybe express an idea, or better, document creation to express an idea and be able to help make right better, decisions around what should we be investing in. It also can help with alternative analysis, and this is definitely an evolving area. And when we talk about alternative analysis today, it's a mix of generative and agentic, in that you're looking for potential scenarios and asking about, risk elements or risk prompts or cost prompts, and you can get some really strong analysis in that. And at the end of the day, what does that do? It drives stronger goal management. You can see alignment more clearly, and whether you are, setting it up from, top-down strategy, you identify OKRs, you use those key results to help drive your prioritization process, helps you better identify performance and milestones so that you can track them more effectively. And finally, at the end of the day, it fosters better discussions, which improves employee productivity. It builds trust between, leadership and employees, company and their customers and their public. All of that goes into building a trust network that can really differentiate a company in the marketplace.
So let's take a quick poll from our audience. We want to hear from you. And remember, there's no right or wrong answer here, but how confident do you feel in your organization's readiness to scale AI in daily workflows across teams and departments? Go from one, not at all confident, to five, feeling confident, feeling very confident. I'm seeing the data come in real time, which is pretty cool. I've actually never seen this before. And it looks like most, right, the majority of people are at that 3 level early in the process, right? Maybe unsure if you're confident or not. And I think that's pretty normal. We find that in our own research at the Work Innovation Lab, we found that 67% of organizations are failing to scale AI. Many of them, right, are stuck in a kind of early pilot process where they're demoing different AI solutions, but struggling to find one that scales across their organization. So what are those leading organizations doing differently? What's the kind of recipe for success? We analyzed data from over 112,000 employees across hundreds of companies to discover what sets those high-performing teams and organizations in terms of AI implementation apart. And what we really found at the core of it is that the adoption of AI and collaborative work management requires a deep human focus, right? So it's not just about the technology, which technology solution you're choosing, but it's about how are you enabling the people in your organization to get value from that solution. Part of that, right, is about mindsets. So we've looked at the psychology of AI usage, and we find that successful organizations treat AI not just as a tool, but as a teammate. And this mindset shift is really critical. So, for example, 53% of knowledge workers consider AI a tool, only 9% consider it a teammate. But those who see AI as a teammate are 33% more likely to report productivity gains. And we think that's because when AI is really integrated into the kind of actual flow of work and embraced across all levels of the organization as if it were a member of your team, then the human teams, right, the human employees are able to transform how they operate to deliver real impact. And that requires a thoughtful shift. I think AI and CWM are increasingly providing organizations with complete end-to-end solutions that gets work done as efficiently as possible. And it's no longer just about standalone AI tools. Now, the other side of this is tracking the right outcomes, right? To have success, you have to track and measure the right outcomes and evaluate the impact of what you're implementing. If you're not doing that, you won't know if what you're doing is having impact or not, right? We find that organizations that successfully scale AI implementations, they're measuring a lot more ROI metrics than those that aren't. They're tracking ROI, that is return on investment, across many different aspects of their organization. 3.4 for organizations that are scaling AI versus 1.6 metrics for those that aren't. And where are those extra metrics coming from? A lot of it has to do with things beyond just pure efficiency gains, right? They're looking at things like employee productivity, employee satisfaction, and employee adoption alongside metrics like time savings or cost savings, right? And we think that that kind of human focus, that focus on the employee and employee experience and employee impact around AI is really where they're able to get better value and then scale it across their organization. But doing this is really challenging. And so I'd love to hear from you, Margot. What are you hearing from customers or clients about how they're approaching return on investment in AI and investments in AI in general in the lens of collaborative work management?
Yeah, I think it's important. I mean, metrics are one of the top questions I get. Metrics of anything are one of the most frequent questions that I get. But I think it's important to look at this in terms of take a two-prong approach to this. One is what is a measurable and scalable strategy for AI, which is very much an organizational wide decision on how can we leverage AI to differentiate our company, and then how can collaborative work with its investment in AI help us take best advantage of this. So you have two sets of measures that need to be accounted for. One is the overall measurable strategy for AI, and will investments in AI drive greater revenue for particular products or services that an organization delivers to their customer. And AI and collaborative work management helps you work together smarter to take advantage of those AI strategies. You're gathering the data that is being created as you are building and executing products and building decision trees and processes in AI for automation. And then you can track, hey, have we been able to cut down the amount of time it takes for us to reconcile accounts? Well, collaborative work management helps you see insight into that by having, a collaborative thread of not just a conversation around it, but the attributes that are part of that, your GL, customer memo, any sort of messaging like that, virtual meetings where you have a transcript. You have all of that information that can be gathered and grabbed, and it helps you qualify the measures, qualify what's being done in order to quantify the measures of success or failure. So I think it has to be, not to beat the nail over the head for collaborative, but it is. It is collaborative. You've got to start bringing it together in order for people to be able to work together more effectively. Because every activity that you assign, and we got a really good question that I want us to tackle first in our Q&A is, what do we need to do in order for us to be able to take this advantage of an investment? Do we need to push resources where they, into areas and skills and talents that they might not have developed as quickly as what the company needs in order to be able to achieve the outcome? Or how can the employee excel to be able to move to that next level? So you can see these things are all parts of the puzzle. They've got to work together. So measurable, scalable, On a business side, it's going to be revenues, it's going to be operational efficiency, it is going to be employee satisfaction, employee empowerment. So that's a combination. So there are things that you can count easily, but there are things that need to be a little bit harder to quantify, and that's where collaborative work really extends that to be able to show you the context behind that score to understand how you got there. So I hope that answers the question.
No, that's great. I totally agree. With that, I think we're ready to move to the live Q&A. We have a couple of questions that are already in, so we'll start there. But feel free, if you haven't yet, to submit questions to the Q&A section, and we'll try to get to as many as we can in the next 10 or so minutes. I think the first question, this one's perhaps for you, Margot. For orgs that are early in their digital transformation journey, where or how would you suggest they start on their collaborative work management strategy?
Um, Very good question, and I think it links to one that we got in the Q and A as well, the second one that we saw in Q and A. Because that question asked about strong push from executive leadership, but they don't understand how to build a foundational infrastructure. How to communicate those needs more clearly, is the question. It leans very much, Mark, with what you just asked me. And I think that the point of this is, I'll give you an example of an insurance organization that I interviewed for this. And what they found was that the sheer number of collisions and disconnects, their words, collisions and disconnects in just how people work together really drove down their productivity. They formed a Tiger team, and the Tiger team found out that 45 minutes of every 60-minute meeting was spent on recap, which only left 15 minutes for decision making, which left really no analysis for how should we go forward. And collaborative work management can enable you to do your homework ahead of the meeting so that you see what the context is and you bring that together. So when you do get face to face or screen to screen, everybody's on the same page. You can then start to begin to strategize and identify solutions or alternative solutions. And that makes your decision making that much faster with higher level of confidence. That organization was able to reduce not only the number of meetings, but the length of meetings by over half within a year of adopting the product. Okay, they saw little improvements immediately, but it grew as adoption. So I think what you need to do in the beginning is start looking at how much time are we wasting and how can collaborative work management help us reduce that. How much time do you spend looking for things? Begin to communicate what that is. The average information worker only spends 13% of their day on the actual work they've been hired to do. Everything else is around that work. So it's meetings, it's conversations, it's responding to emails. If you can cut that down where you can see this information as you're doing the work and able to get feedback to make a decision on the work, that can accelerate the work far more effectively. So I think start with foundational of this is how we work together, how can we work better together? And then you can begin to quantify this by looking at how much money does that waste cost. It follows very much in an agile, an agile or a lean playlist, which is where we see the organization going as a whole anyway.
Yeah, and in my experience, talking with customers of Asana and different groups, is that once you start to do a process like this, those cost and time savings can be much larger than you expect. Like I think in our research we find that 53% of work is wasted on busy work. So that kind of gives you the scale of potential time savings that you could eventually have. Another question, which I think is an interesting one that came in, is which company departments are often seeing the biggest benefits of AI and CWM? I can answer
Sure.
this from a
You
research
start to
perspective.
help with some color.
Yeah, We've seen like I mean I think a lot of different departments are experimenting with and benefiting from AI and CWM. A handful of use cases really come to mind for me. The first is certainly marketing use cases where they have, let's say they're running some kind of campaign or design process, right? They have internal customers who they're sourcing design requests from. And they have a kind of extended process through which they review those requests. Maybe they evaluate those requests. They might ask for additional information from the people requesting, et cetera, right? And AI can help at every stage of that process, at the triage, at the intake, at the triage, at the execution stage, right? And but that type of process where you have intake, triage, and execution is actually common across many different groups, right? So IT has similar sets of processes. You might think of product as well. I mean, really any group in the organization can have a process like that. And I think AI is really effective at helping reduce the busy work and time loss that happens between each of those steps. So you get intake. How does it get triaged? You have to give it to someone to triage. That takes time. They maybe need to ask for information. That back and forth takes time. And AI can be a partner in that process throughout. I don't know if you have any others in mind.
Yeah, just to add to that, what you just described could be mapped out visually in a lean exercise. What's the lag time between, between getting a decision making? Does something need to be signed off twice? What's the length of time we need to wait? Collaborative work management can give you the insights into this so that you know where you need to really drive emphasis. I see, marketing was one of the biggest early opportunities for CWM. But what's funny is that it's not unusual for CWM to go into a marketing department and then proliferate to engineering, customer service, HR. We're seeing now, especially with content collaboration, everybody works on digital content. If you are an worker, you touch a device, you have electronic content. So being able to work on that then really has the need for collaborative work to infiltrate the entire organization. But I agree, marketing, engineering, technology, logistics, all those areas I've seen as early adopters and are, being the advocates to really drive this throughout the organization.
And it's still early, so it's also going to be really, I think, interesting over the next year to just see all of the proliferation of use cases that come out of the kind of interaction between CWM or the integration of AI into these CWM tools like Asana. Let's see what else we have here.
We had a question come in. Someone asked, sometimes I assign tasks to the person I need to push to grow their skills rather than assigning to the person who is fastest at the task. Uh, I'll have I'll give you my perspective, but Mark, I would love for you to do this, give some insight as well. What I see in that is when you are pushing somebody that needs to grow their skills, one of the barriers against growing skills is accessibility to necessary information or opportunity to work with that potentially faster person to help mentor and build that talent growth and skill. And we see this a lot with, especially in software development teams, where it's not unusual to pair a junior developer with a more senior developer so that the junior developer gets the experience and the insight from the senior developer to build better foundations for applications that they are, that they're producing for their clients. And the senior developer gets to see the potential in the junior developer. And you can form, again, more trust, better relationships, things like that. Also, the integration of OKRs into collaborative work management tools can help you identify as a manager to work with an employee to say, hey, I think this is an area that's ripe for growth where we need, we want you to come up to a certain skill level. They can build it into the OKR process So they're both working toward a collective goal.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think this kind of perspective of leading with mentoring and mentoring opportunities is really important. We see that in our research too, that especially yeah, junior developers, junior marketers, right? Even if you can't assign them maybe the most complex tasks at the start, but if you pair them with a team or with another person that they catch up quickly, and then those opportunities, right, then allow you to them to increase their speed. So then in the future, you have someone else that is fast, right? Which is
Yes,
ultimately what you want.
absolutely.
Um, so we have one question which I think is interesting. From an IT agile perspective, how does CWM integrate with Scrum methodology processes where other tools such as Azure DevOps are in use by the dev team? I can speak to this from the Asana perspective, where there's ways to build kind of Scrum methodology directly into how you manage a project. Let's say in Asana, and our Asana's own engineering teams do things like that, either Agile or Scrum in platform. And then I think there's another question of the kind of integration stack, right? And I think like we discussed in earlier,
Yeah,
integration.
ecosystem approach, right?
Yeah, that
You
eco, and I think that's becoming increasingly central to CWM, and like you mentioned, Margot, and it's a big area of importance and investment at Asana, and that's precisely because you have your dev team working in Azure DevOps, and you have maybe another team working in ServiceNow or in who knows, right? Some IT management software, right? And the ability to integrate all of those different platforms into a centralized platform of record so that everyone has visibility into their work is a key, I think, value proposition.
I can put I can put a little bit of a different perspective on this from from the ecosystem perspective. Mark, you're absolutely right. When I talked about the ecosystem being built, we are seeing with increased emphasis on AI driven architecture. You're thinking about, how do I bring this into the ecosystem and how do I bring it together? So, okay, that's great from a technology perspective. From an organizational perspective, you also need to be thinking about, how do I want my teams to work together faster, and from a process and a governance perspective. Governance is no longer a dirty word. Okay, it is just merely, and AI is a supporter of this, really, in that let's build the right guidelines and guardrails for our employees, so that they can drive better decisioning. So as you're looking to scale this and integrate between CWM and dev tools or other tools in the ecosystem, you're looking at, what are the common data touch points that we need to know, whether it's time, whether it's budget, whether it is a customer, whether it is, a risk flag or a change flag. All of those areas, why people spend so much time looking for everything is, everybody does something in their own way. Everybody thinks their way of doing it is better. And you know what? In many situations, um, adapting work is the way to go, but you've got to have some common data driven touch points so that you can share information in the right context. So it's not about building a green dashboard with nary a red light in sight, but it's about providing the right level of context to help people do the actual work together more effectively.
With that, we are going to close out the Q&A, and we can, I kind of want to summarize with just a few of the key takeaways. Um, First of all, collaborative work management is becoming the critical foundation for a scalable and AI-driven transformation. And an effective AI strategy goes beyond just implementation, right? It's about transforming how work gets done to deliver real impact, rethinking workflows from the ground up, right? And the true value of of AI comes from the consistent and repeated use and when it's embedded in where work actually happens.
I would
So with
agree.
that, oh yeah, do you have any final takeaways too, Margot?
I think that they're very much to the point. So
Awesome. We
Great.
have two QR codes for you after this that you can scan now if you'd like to review some of the research and insights that we've discussed in this. The first is the Crossing the Five AI Chasms report, which is the Work Innovation Lab research that I mentioned in the presentation. This QR code will take you to the page. And here's another QR code to read about the Forrester wave of collaborative work management in 2025. So thank you all so much for coming to this webinar. Thank you, Margot, for your super insightful conversation. It was such a pleasure to have you here, so really appreciate it, and hope that you all have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Mark. Bye, everybody.